Hello, I am Chloe Hansen, an education major at Northern Caribbean University, and in today's video, we will be exploring a variety of educational leadership styles that administrators can use to guide their schools effectively. Of course, I will set out to define each style, look at some examples. We will also assess their advantages and challenges, and I will go ahead and share with you my personal take on each of the styles
So,
examined.
the
So
leadership
by the
styles
end
to
of it,
be covered in this presentation are as follows: the generative leadership style, inclusive leadership style, situational, democratic, autocratic, transformational, charismatic, and of course, transactional. So, we're going to start with the generative leadership style. This is a style where there's the identification of an issue or problem, and it is framed in such a way that the individuals who are affected by the issue will be motivated to come up with ideas to solve it. So, as it relates to an example, Jasper's High School has noticed that students are not progressing as expected, showing a need for new learning strategies. And here we have technology incorporation. The principal called a meeting with teachers to discuss possible solutions. Together, they brainstormed ideas for integrating digital tools into lessons. The principal supported the teachers and encouraged them to try the new approaches, helping improve student learning. So, with that being said, this leadership style is advantageous as it sees to solving complex situations. It's very flexible and, of course, encourages team engagement. Disadvantageously, it can be very time consuming, can be conflicting. A lack of total control for some leaders can be bothersome, and this it doesn't have total control, so that is going to be a problem for some. And of course, it greatly requires socioeconomic intelligence. Personally, yes, I know it's not a very conventional leadership style, but I give it credit for its full potential of being very helpful, especially when it comes to stirring creativity and innovation and coming to the rescue in uncertain situations. Now, as it relates to inclusive leadership, this is a style that sees leaders trying as much as possible to ensure that everyone is respected, included, and valued, irrespective of their differences. So, here we have an example. A principal who organizes regular meetings with teachers, students, and parents to gather input on school policies can be seen as an inclusive leader because at the end of the day, this principal is clearly showing that they understand that there is a huge importance when it comes to acknowledging the diverse needs and experiences of the school community. Of course, we have many advantages. There is commitment to equity. Cultural intelligence is seen as well as emotional intelligence. On the downside, there is still a sense of bias that can be seen. Some members may be a bit resistant when it comes to heavy inclusion. And of course, there can be the creation of an inclusive environment taking a lot of time to do. So, as it relates to my thoughts, I believe that the inclusive leadership styles is one of the most useful leadership styles an educational administrator can use. The style encourages participation, it strengthens relationships, and promotes a sense of belonging, which can improve both student and teacher engagement. But I am going to, of course, give a disclaimer and I'm going to call for caution because it requires a lot of commitment, a lot of patience, and of course, you must be very willing as the leader to navigate the diversity that often comes with this leadership style. Now, as it relates to the situational leadership style, it's seen where the leader is essentially adapting to the situation or the task, and that is how they decide how to lead. So, for example, an instructional coordinator is conducting a workshop for a group of teachers who are very skilled and motivated, but they face challenges when it comes to learning new information. Now, upon realizing this, the individual decides to use the participating type in leading out the workshop. So instead of focusing on instruction, they focused on relationship and support to ensure that understanding can be seen. Now, if it was another group, then they would go ahead and use a different style where there's not a lot of focus on trying to create a relationship. So, advantageously, Decision making is strong, communication is typically healthy, flexibility is seen, and resource allocation is efficient as well. But on the downside, it cannot exist in every school culture. So, as a leader, you must know your school culture to use this leadership style. Misinterpretations are likely. And of course, if you have a leader that cannot adapt, then it's not going to work very well. Now, my thoughts. This is my favorite. No questions asked. Because at the end of the day, the adaptability, I think, speaks volumes. And I think that creates some sort of balance between flexibility and goal acquisition, essentially. Now, the next leadership style is the democratic leadership style. The democratic leadership style, which is also known as the participative leadership style or shared leadership, is one where members of the group are actively participating in the decision making process. So, we have a principal here at Better Life High who wants to expand the school's extracurricular activities. And instead of getting up and stating what exactly these activities are going to be to see in its expansion, he gathers input from staff and students through meetings and surveys to see what interests they have, what activities they have in mind. So even though the principal is going to have the final say, it is seen where the decision is heavily guided by the school community. So that's to ensure that the shared influence or interests are reflected. Now, as advantages, of course, productivity is maintained, team member commitment is seen as well, and the birth of more and creative solutions is seen. On the downside, decision making can be very time consuming. The leadership style is not suitable for all leaders. And of course, minority or individual opinions can be overridden. So personally, I think this is my second favorite leadership style. I think the participation aspect of it is something that I really appreciate, especially when it comes to decision making and the level of creativity and the sense of ownership that can come out as well. I really admire. I think it really helps with building a positive and inclusive school environment. Now, up next, we have the transformational leadership style. And this leadership style is where the leader is seen inspiring and motivating their team by providing clear visions to see to innovation and to foster personal growth. So we have an English head of department, and they realize that, hey, I want to bring forward this reading culture. So that's the vision that they share. And they support the teachers with training, they encourage creative strategies, and they recognize innovation. So students are able to participate in book clubs and reading challenges. And over time, it's seen where both teachers and students have this interest in improving literacy. As for advantages, it typically guarantees long term change, it promotes creativity and innovation. Um, Motivation can be built and maintained, and of course, there is some fostering of organizational change because there's an influence of positive behavior. On the downside, it's not always practical for immediate problems. There is a heavy reliance on the leader as well because they're the ones coming with the vision. And of course, there's a substantial level of pressure which can be placed on followers because the leader has the vision and you are going to bring it out. And that is the heart of the matter. So there is typically some pressure on them. Now, personally, I appreciate this leadership style as well. I think the inspiration of innovation and motivation is really important. But my only problem is how dependent the whole thing is on the leader and the leader's vision. I think if the vision is poor from day one, then we are going to definitely lose direction. But other than that, I think it can be effective when used properly. So, up next, we have the autocratic leadership style. The autocratic leadership style is one that sees leaders making choices based on their own ideas and judgments. So, we have an example here where we have the head of department for mathematics at My Way or the Highways High School is pretty much giving teachers specific roles, their lesson plans, classroom responsibilities, and they're not asking about their opinions or what they're interested in doing. So everything is dictated for them. It's not about discussion, it's full compliance essentially. So as it relates to the advantages, and I know it may be hard to believe, but yes, we have some advantages. The decision making is quick. Accountability is clear because the leader is the one carrying through everything. So, off the bat, you're accountable. And of course, there is a clear sense of direction and structure, and there's strong control and oversight. On the downside, staff is often demotivated by this type of leadership style. I mean, on top of that, creativity and innovation is often limited. The professional development is not always seen because with this leadership style, you're not necessarily channeling a lot in your stuff. And unfortunately, there's a high chance of burnout for leaders because they are willingly taking on this huge role. So eventually, they're going to burn out. So this is definitely the one that I am not a fan of all of these, because I think, sure, when it comes to quick decision making or having control, it's good. But at the end of the day, if you want to see to everyday management, especially everyday's effective school management, I don't see how this is going to work because it limits collaboration, creativity, and input. So it's not really resonating with me. I don't think it's enough for maintaining a healthy school environment. Now, up next we have the charismatic leadership style. Now, in this leadership or through this leadership style, we see the leader being very persuasive. They have exceptional communication skills and a bit of charm when it comes to getting the most out of their team. So, for example, the principal of Bijou High School launches a new mentorship program, and they're passionately communicating how it will transform student engagement and academic performance. And the charisma goes off onto the teachers and students, and they're pushed to want to come forward and participate in the initiative as well. So on the bright side, the leaders are able to bring everyone together, so work can be done. The leaders can work well under pressure as well, and of course, there's some adaptability that comes with it. On the downside, burnout is very likely. It may be difficult to see long-term change with his leadership style, and there is an over reliance on the leader because we're looking at the energy of the leader or the level of charisma. So that's a downside. And of course, the participation can be reduced as hard as it is to believe, because if the leader is very active and so, he can be too active at times, if you get what I mean. But I like the leadership style. I think it's in my top three. And I think the leader's energy, passion, and vision is very important. I'm just hoping, or I would just say to you, be very careful when you're using it, because you don't want your team to become too dependent on you, and you don't want to see some reduction in participation. You don't want to be too charismatic. So we have the transactional leadership style, which means we are winding down. So, as it relates to the transactional leadership style, it is a leadership style that sees a system of reward and punishment that's used to essentially motivate and direct followers. So, in this example, at City View Baptist Junior High, the principal wants to see an improvement in the student CXC pass rates. As such, he is pretty much saying, all right, as teachers, if you improve the pass rate, you will be rewarded, but if not, you're going to have to get some sort of feedback and guidance. And essentially, you see some accountability coming out here, which is funny enough an advantage. So it encourages accountability because you know what you sign up for, you know what you're working towards. It's exceptional for short-term goal achievement, and it really improves productivity. Now, it does not create future leaders, especially when you look at the fact that individuals can focus more on consequences and rewards than the goal. And because of that, they're not very goal oriented people, which, of course, if you want to be a leader, you have to be very goal oriented. And unfortunately, leaders who use this leadership style are not always the most empathetic out there. But I think it's still good. I'd say it's in the top five for me. It provides clear expectations, which I think is really good. And of course, it encourages accountability. So there is some level of motivation. But as for the previous ones, my only thing for this, or I have something for this as well, the short term results, that's the one. I wish it could be more of a prolonged thing, and the over focus on external rewards, because I think that would limit creativity as well and intrinsic motivation, of course.